His hands trembled, just for a second, when he touched her bare shoulder. Not because he was nervous, but because for the first time, he wasn't thinking of her. He was thinking of the woman lying beneath him now. Breathing. Real. Unforgettable. And when he whispered her name, it wasn't out of habit. It was a choice. If you want more stories that begin with heat and end with something deeper, like subscribe and stay with us. You won't want to miss what comes next. No one ever knocks this softly, unless they've come to ruin your life. It was a Wednesday morning. The snow was just beginning to crust at the windows, and the smell of wax and leather filled the little workroom like usual. I was smoothing the welt on a custom pair of boots when Elise burst into tears in the next room. She does that sometimes. Sudden guttural sobs that pierce through walls and skin. Her autism makes the world too loud, too sharp, too unpredictable. I've learned not to flinch. But this time, I didn't move because something in the silence after her crying stopped was worse than the crying itself. Then, the knock came. 3 times. Gentle, but not unsure. I opened the door to a woman in a gray wool coat, hair tight in a bun, holding a leather folder with the name Blackmore & Co., stamped in silver. "Miss Wynne?" Her voice was clipped, deliberate. "My employer has extended an offer, a personal one." I didn't invite her in, but she stepped in anyway. "Your face," she said, flipping open the folder, "was captured 3 weeks ago by surveillance at the Fairbanks Leather Expo. Section C. You were delivering inventory for a client named." "I know where I was," I snapped. "Why do you?" She slid a photo across the counter. I looked down. It was me. Except it wasn't. The woman in the picture was older, in a formal dress, standing beside a man in a tuxedo. Her features, so close to mine it made my skin crawl, wore a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Her name was Isabella Blackmore. She passed away 2 years ago. Car accident. "And your employer?" I asked slowly, still staring at the photo. "Her husband." My throat went dry. "What does he want from me?" "A marriage. For 1 year. You will serve as Mr. Blackmore's public spouse, attend events, handle appearances, and live at the estate under non-interference terms. In return, all expenses pertaining to your sister's care will be paid in full, advanced, and you will receive a monthly allowance." Looked up. "You're not joking." "Mr. Blackmore doesn't joke," she said. That night, Elise fell asleep in my lap, her head twitching slightly as she whispered to herself. I sat on the floor of the workroom, watching snow drift past the old, dusty skylight. In my hands, the contract felt heavier than it should have. I didn't care about love. I'd never even been kissed, not really. My life was made of shoelaces, half-finished souls, and quiet nights trying to keep Elise from hurting herself. Still, marriage? To a stranger? Because I looked like his dead wife? I opened the contract again. Clause 4.7. Spouse will not enter the west wing of the Blackmore estate without permission. Clause 6.2. Spouse agrees to confidentiality in perpetuity. Clause 9.1. Spouse acknowledges that physical intimacy is not required, but not restricted. I closed it. By morning, the answer should have been no. But Elise sat across the table, chewing, on her sleeve, her eyes distant. The community housing center had called. Our place was no longer compliant. We'd lose our subsidy. And Elise couldn't handle another change. I picked up the phone. "I'll do it," I said. The office of Blackmore & Comer was glass and silence. The receptionist didn't ask who I was. She simply nodded and directed me to the 37th floor. There, in a room with floor-to-ceiling windows and zero warmth, a camera faced me from the far corner. I sat down at a sleek table with a single pen resting beside the final page of the contract. The screen on the wall lit up. He was already there. Ethan Blackmore. He looked like he'd been carved out of winter. Sharp jaw, cold eyes, not a single hint of softness anywhere on his face. He wore black, of course, and didn't speak immediately. Just watched me. I stared back. My heart raced, but I held it steady. He was expecting a reflection. I would not be one. "You've seen the terms," he said. His voice was deeper than I expected, controlled, precise. "Yes," I replied, "but not the reason." "Why me?" "Because you look like her," he said simply. I waited. Nothing more came. "You could have hired an actress," I said coldly. "They wear off," he said. "Real stays longer." I almost stood. But then I thought of Elise. I thought of eviction notices and panic attacks and long nights crying into blankets she couldn't explain. "You should know," I said. "I'm not Isabella. I don't talk like her. I don't laugh like her. I won't be her." He leaned closer to the screen. "That's the point." My signature looked like it had been scratched in. The lawyer took the papers. The screen blinked off. For a moment, the silence returned. Not the kind Elise makes, but the kind that falls over your life before something irreversible begins. And in that stillness, I wondered, not who he was, but who I would have to become. The first thing I noticed was the silence, not the kind I'd grown used to. The soft hush of early mornings in Maine, the gentle quiet Elise makes when she's focused. No, this was different. This was the silence of rooms not lived in, of time held still. The car dropped me at the front gates of the Blackmore estate just before sunset. The sky was bruised with violet and gray, and the air bit through my coat, like it had teeth. A butler greeted me with a stiff nod and took my bag. Just one. Everything I owned could fit into it. That and the contract now folded in the lining of my coat. The front doors opened like a cathedral's, heavy, high, too much. The foyer was all marble and echoes. Every step I took seemed to offend the floor. "He's waiting in the drawing." "Room," the butler said. I wasn't sure what a drawing room was, but I followed the scent of cedarwood and old money down the hall. Ethan stood near the fireplace, back to me, glass of something dark in his hand. He didn't turn when I entered. "You're early," he said. "You didn't give me a time." Still, I waited. No greeting, no welcome. Just the heat of the fire and the cold from him. He finally looked at me, eyes sharp, assessing. "You, cut your hair," he said. Yes. She never would have. I swallowed that down, let it sting, then stood straighter. Then I guess that's one thing we won't have in common. That earned me a flicker. Not quite a smirk, not quite surprise, but something. He nodded toward the hallway. "The east wing is yours. Don't enter the west." I read the contract. I assumed you might. My room was, lavish was too small a word. Velvet curtains, gold-trimmed mirror, a bed large enough to swallow me. Everything smelled faintly of jasmine and rosewater. Familiar. Too familiar. Then, I saw the photo, on the vanity, framed in silver. Isabella, her smile, my smile, her eyes, my eyes, the same tilt of the chin, same shadowed dimples. The longer I stared, the more it felt like the mirror wasn't reflecting me at all, but her. Opened a drawer, needing something, anything that was mine. Instead, I found a bottle of perfume. I twisted off the cap and smelled it. Isabella's scent. He hadn't even emptied the drawers. Dinner was served in a dining room the size of a school gymnasium. Ethan sat at one end of the table. I sat at the other. Between us, 100 silent candles flickered in tall silver candelabras. We ate without speaking. He barely looked up. I studied the way he cut his steak. Precise, no wasted motion. I wondered if he kissed the same way. Efficient, controlled. Halfway through the meal, he said, "You don't have to speak unless spoken to." I wasn't planning on it, I replied. That earned me another glance. Short, but not empty. When dessert came, I pushed my plate away. "You're not eating," he said. "Neither are you." He poured himself another drink. I stood. The hallway outside was lined with portraits, paintings, not photos. I recognized some of the faces from old society columns. The Blackmores were old money, and they made sure everyone knew it. I passed the West Wing staircase. It spiraled upward like a spine, twisting into shadow. No footsteps, no creaks, just a strange feeling in my gut, like something was watching me from above. I kept walking. That night I showered with the lights off. I didn't want to see her reflection looking back at me. The steam clouded the mirror. When I stepped out, I used my palm to clear a circle. My face stared back, pale, still wet. But behind it, over my shoulder, a flicker of movement. I spun. Nothing. Just the air, humming low and strange. I turned back. My reflection was steady now. But I still felt watched. I couldn't sleep. The bed was too soft, the sheets too smooth. Every shadow felt personal. Around 2 a.m., I heard something. Soft steps, a door creaking, the sound of glass clinking. I crept out of bed, padded to the hallway. The sound came from the West Wing. A sliver of light spilled under the edge of the forbidden door. I moved closer. A voice, low, broken. It was Ethan. "Bella," he whispered. A pause, then again. "Bella." I didn't mean to. Silence. Then the sound of something shattering. I stepped back, heart pounding. He was still in love with her, not just grieving, not just haunted. Still hers. Back in my room, I stood in front of the mirror. I looked at my own eyes, my own jaw, my lips. I touched the glass. Was he going to kiss me because I looked like her? Hold me because I smelled like her? Whisper her name in the dark while my body lay beside him? A part of me wanted to scream. Another part wanted to disappear. But somewhere deep inside, a colder voice asked, "What if he can't forget her? And what if you make him?" The West Wing door was open. It hadn't been the night before. I would have noticed. It was always closed, like a wound that refused to scab over. But now, in the pale morning light that bled through the hall windows, it stood ajar. Just a little. The air from inside was colder, denser, like grief had a temperature. Stepped closer. And then the butler appeared, silent as shadow. "You're not allowed beyond this point," he said calmly, like he was reciting a rule I should have been born knowing. "I wasn't going in," I lied. He didn't reply, just waited until I turned and walked away. At breakfast, Ethan didn't speak. I didn't either. The tension between us had changed. It wasn't sharp now. It was thick, heavy, like molasses poured into glass. He looked tired, not the kind of tired you fix with sleep, the kind that clings to your bones, that rewrites your posture. His eyes were darker today, not from anger, just absence. "You were sleep-talking last night," I said quietly. He didn't flinch. Just sipped his coffee. "You said her name." "Bella." His hand paused midair. "And?" I looked straight at him. "And you broke something." He set the cup down. "I don't need to explain myself to you." "You don't," I agreed. "But maybe I need to know who I married. A pause. Then, just before he stood to leave, he said, "She died in that wing." Later that day, I found the library. It was tucked between two corridors, walled with dark oak and warmer than the rest of the house. A fireplace crackled in the corner, and old jazz played on vinyl in the background. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was trespassing. Books were stacked high, most untouched. But one shelf had signs of life, dust brushed aside, spines worn. I scanned the titles: psychology, grief, trauma, obsession. And tucked between them, something personal, a leather-bound photo album. I opened it. It started like a fairy tale. Ethan and Isabella, young, elegant, the kind of beautiful that only money and lighting can buy. Parties, travel, a wedding photo in Paris, then a different kind of photo. Isabella as a child, in overalls, laughing, hair tied in messy braids. She stood beside a smaller girl, same age I had been then, at a birthday party. The writing beneath, Marie and Bella, summer, 1999, Marie. My mother's name. My blood went cold. I flipped to the back of the album, hands shaking. Inside the last sleeve was a folded paper, a birth certificate. Isabella Blackmore. Born 1994. Birth mother, Marie Wynne. No, it had to be coincidence, but Marie Wynne was not a common name, and neither was Amara Wynne. I sat on the floor. I didn't tell Ethan, not yet. I needed space to think, to breathe. That night I tried to sleep, but the wind rattled the windows, and my thoughts were louder than the storm. Sometime after midnight, I heard it again. Footsteps. I stepped into the hall barefoot, careful. The west wing door was open again, a slice of darkness spilling across the marble floor. A shape moved inside. Ethan. I followed, heart pounding. He walked like he was lost, or dreaming. Shirt unbuttoned, no shoes. His hand trailed along the wall, like he was reaching for something that wasn't there. "Bella," he whispered, "don't go in the car. Please, just wait." Then he stopped, breathing hard. I didn't mean to make a sound, but the floor creaked beneath me. His head snapped toward mine. He wasn't asleep. He wasn't dreaming. "Why are you here?" he asked, voice raw. "I could ask you the same." His face twisted, pain flickering through it like lightning behind clouds. "She died here," he said. "In this room. She left the party angry. I was drunk. She took the car. And you didn't. Stop her?" I tried. But she didn't look back. He sat down on the edge of a velvet chaise, elbows on knees. "She was pregnant," he added. 6 weeks. My breath caught. She never told me. I found out after. They said the impact was instant, that she wouldn't have felt anything. But I do. He looked at me then, not past me, not through me. At me. "And now you wear her face," he said. "Do you know what that's like?" I swallowed hard. "I might know more than you think." Back in my room, I stared at the birth certificate for the 100th time. If Isabella was my cousin, or half-sister, then none of this was coincidence. He picked me because I looked like her, but I looked like her because we were family. He didn't know that, but I did now. So who was I in this story? A stranger, a replacement, or some cruel twist of fate no one asked for? I climbed into bed, pulling the blanket tight, heart racing with the one question I couldn't shake. If he knew, would he still want me here? The rain came without warning, loud and merciless, slamming against the glass like it had something to prove. I was in the greenhouse. I wasn't supposed to be, but no one stopped me. It was the only place in the estate that smelled like life, wet, earth, growing things. Everything else smelled like stillness, and perfume I didn't wear. I sat on the cold stone bench, letting the water drip through cracks in the glass above. My hair was damp, my sleeves soaked through. I didn't care. Wasn't hiding. I was waiting. I'd spent 3 weeks inside this house with a man who didn't see me. Not really. I'd eaten beside him, breathed beside him, watched him break in silence over a ghost whose shadow was pressed against my skin like a second identity. But tonight, something in me cracked. Maybe it was the birth certificate. Maybe it was the way he looked at me in the West Wing. Like he wanted to forget and couldn't. Or maybe I just wanted to stop being a mirror. The door slammed open behind me. Ethan. He didn't speak, just walked into the greenhouse like a storm of his own. "You shouldn't be out here," he growled. I wasn't aware I needed permission to sit in the rain. His jaw tensed. "You'll get sick." "Maybe I want to." He moved closer. "You're not her." "No," I snapped, "but you keep trying to make me be." Lightning flashed. For a second, his face lit up, beautiful, tormented, furious. "You think I don't know that?" he hissed. "You think I haven't tried to forget her every goddamn day since she died? And yet you brought me here," I whispered, rising to meet his eye. "Put me in her bed, fed me her food, gave me her face, and told me not to speak unless spoken to." "I needed a way out," he shouted, "a way to stop seeing her everywhere I went. And then I saw you, and for 1 second I thought maybe I could rewrite the ending." I stepped closer, rain trickling down my temple. "You didn't want to rewrite it," I said, soft but sharp. "You wanted to relive it. With someone you could punish." His breath caught. "And what happens," I asked, "if the copy stops playing along?" We stood inches apart. The tension wasn't electric, it was atomic. His hands twitched at his sides. Mine curled into fists. Then he grabbed me. Not gently, but not cruelly either. He kissed me like a man who hadn't tasted anything real in years. Desperate, bruising, hungry. His lips crushed mine, mouth open, breathing me in like oxygen. After drowning, I didn't pull away. I kissed him back. Because I wanted to. Because I needed to. Because somewhere between anger and ache, we'd stopped being two people and become one unspeakable thing. His hands found the back of my neck, tangled in my soaked hair. I gasped, and he caught the sound with his mouth. I pushed him against the glass wall, and he let me, then turned. The tables. He lifted me, effortlessly, and set me on the stone bench, his coat falling to the floor. My legs wrapped around his waist before I could stop myself. Every layer of clothing he removed felt like unwrapping something that had been buried for years. My breath hitched when his hands touched bare skin for the first time. My skin, not hers, not a memory, not a substitute. Me. I could feel the shift in him. His rhythm slowed, his grip tightened. When our bodies met, finally, fully, it wasn't violent. It was violent in intent, not in act. Like something inside both of us had snapped, and the only way to survive the shatter was through contact. I arched under him. He buried his face in my shoulder and whispered brokenly, "Tell me your name." My heart stopped. I grabbed his face, made him look at me. "Amara," I breathed. "Say it. Amara." Again. "Amara." He kissed me harder, then slower, then not at all. Just breathing. Just stillness. Later we lay on the floor, surrounded by discarded clothes and the scent of rain and skin. The storm outside had softened to a whisper. His arm was slung across my waist, heavy, grounding. He stared at the ceiling like it might collapse if he looked away. "You don't look like her anymore," he said hoarsely. I turned to him. Why not? Because she never looked at me like that. I didn't ask what he meant. I just let him stay. In the morning, I woke to find him still there, watching me, eyes wide open. No guards, no armor. You said my name, I murmured. I'll say it again, he replied. And he did. 3 times, like he was trying to erase something else from his tongue. For 3 days, we were almost human. Ethan didn't vanish in the mornings anymore. He stayed. He lingered. He touched my back when I passed him in the hall, poured my coffee without asking how I took it, and once, late at night, kissed my fingers for no reason at all. The silence between us no longer suffocated. It shimmered, warm and cautious. Something had shifted. He stopped calling me her with his eyes. I stopped flinching when he touched me. The house began to thaw. On the 4th morning, I woke to the scent of fresh coffee and the soft scrape of a chair. Ethan sat at the edge of the bed, shirt half buttoned, hair still damp from the shower. I'm leaving for the city, he said, meeting with investors. I nodded, blinking sleep from my eyes. How long? Just the day. You'll be alone. He paused, then added softer, unless you want me to cancel. I shook my head. I'll be fine. He kissed my forehead, gently, without heat. Then he was gone. The house felt different without him. Not colder, just uncertain, like it didn't know who it belonged to anymore. I wandered, not aimlessly. I followed instinct, the pull in my gut that had been growing since the night in the greenhouse. Something inside me still didn't fit. I found myself back in the library. It wasn't locked. Nothing in this house ever was, except the truth. The shelves waited, dustless now, familiar. I traced my fingers across the leather-bound photo album I had found weeks ago, but hadn't dared reopen. This time I did. Page by page, the glossy images, whispered pieces of lives I didn't belong to. Ethan and Isabella at fundraisers, on boats, at the theater. Then the childhood photos again, the ones that hadn't let me sleep. And finally, the envelope. Not hidden. Just waiting. I opened it with fingers that barely felt real. Inside, folded once, was a copy of Isabella's birth certificate. I stared at the name. Mother, Marie Wynne. My mother. Same spelling, same middle initial. I dropped the paper like it had burned. Me. Then picked it back up. My brain rebelled. My breath stopped cooperating. Was this a mistake, a coincidence? But the odds were too precise. And somewhere inside, I had known. Maybe from the moment I saw her picture. Maybe even before. I ran to the East Wing. My room now, my prison and refuge. Tore through drawers. Through the small file of my own documents. I hadn't looked at them. In years. There, Amara Wynne, born 1996. Mother, Marie. Wynne. Same mother, 2 years apart, 2 daughters. Different fathers, different truths. I dropped to the floor, shaking. Not just a resemblance, not just fate. Blood, she was my sister. The air felt thinner, the ceiling lower. I couldn't breathe. My stomach turned. I had slept in her bed, eaten off her plates, made love to the man who had once been her husband. I was her shadow, her echo, her continuation. And Ethan didn't know. Did he? When he returned that evening, I was still on the floor. He came in quietly, dropped his keys on the hall table, walked toward the East Wing like any other night. But tonight, I didn't stand. I didn't move. I just held up the papers. He froze. mid-step. "What's that?" he asked, voice low. I didn't speak. He walked closer, took the birth certificate from my hand, eyes scanning quickly, then slower. Then he sat down. Hard. "You didn't know," I whispered. He didn't answer at first, just stared at the document like it was some riddle written in fire. "I knew Isabella was adopted," he finally said. "Her family never told me much. She didn't talk about her past." "She was my sister," I said, barely above a breath. "My mother had another child before me. I was told she died in infancy. I never questioned it." Ethan stood up suddenly, pacing. His hands gripped his hair. "I didn't choose you because of that," he said. "I swear it. I didn't know. But you chose me because I looked like her." His eyes locked onto mine. "I chose you because I was drowning. And now?" He moved toward me. Slowly, carefully. "You pulled me out." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to tear the paper and the past and the mirror in half. But my body had gone still. Numb. Not from fear. From too much knowing. I left him in the hallway and shut the door. Not because I hated him, but because for the first time, I didn't know who I was in his story. The woman he loved. The woman who saved him. Or the sister of the woman he couldn't let go. That night, I lay awake, not from regret, but from the echo of a truth that no longer fit inside my chest. The woman showed up just before noon. She wasn't on the guest list. There was no call, no warning, just the sudden sound of tires on gravel and a knock at the door so sharp it made my skin crawl. I opened it anyway. She stood there in a white coat, wind in her dark hair, eyes fixed on me like she already hated me. She didn't introduce herself, didn't blink. "You're her," she said. "The ghost." "I'm not a ghost," I replied. She pushed past me without waiting for permission. She walked like she belonged here, like grief had turned into entitlement. Her heels clicked down the marble hallway, stopping only when she reached the photo of Isabella near the stairwell. She stared, then said, "You should have stayed dead." I said nothing. Ethan arrived 5 minutes later. He looked older than he had that morning. His jaw tightened the moment he saw her. "Natalie," he said, flat and cold. "Still pretending you don't owe me a conversation?" She snapped. Ethan didn't look at me. "Give us a minute." I didn't move. "I think I'll stay," I said. Natalie turned to him. "She doesn't know, does she?" I stepped forward. "Know what?" Natalie's eyes narrowed. "About the accident, about who was driving." I looked at Ethan. He was stone, silent. "Still, tell her," she hissed. "Go on. Tell her you were behind the wheel." The world narrowed to a pinpoint. "You were driving?" I whispered. He closed his eyes, then nodded. "I was drunk," he said. "We had argued. I shouldn't have gotten in the car. I told her to wait. I said I'd call us a car home, but she wouldn't listen, and I didn't stop her." "That's not the version I heard," Natalie spat. "The one your lawyers paid to bury." My voice was barely there. "You told me she took the car alone." I lied. "Why?" He looked at me then, hollow and hurting. "Because I didn't want you to see me as I was that night. A coward. A drunk. A man who let the woman he loved die because he was too proud to beg her to stay." Silence. Natalie's gaze cut between us. "She was pregnant," she added. "You knew that part, didn't you?" "Yes," I said. He told me. "Her," face twisted, "and yet you're here, wearing her face, sleeping in her bed." "I'm not her," I snapped. "I never was. You were enough like her to make him crawl back into the past. That's all I needed to know." She turned to Ethan one last time. You deserve to lose her too. Then she left. The door slammed, like thunder. Ethan sat down hard on the steps, shoulders trembling, not from rage, from shame. I tried to save her, he whispered. But the truth is, I didn't try hard enough. I stood there, still, cold, all nerves and hollow ribs. You let me believe she left you, I said. That her death was out of your hands. He looked up, eyes red. Would you have come here if I hadn't? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. That night, I didn't sleep in our room. I packed a small bag and moved into the guest quarters, far from his scent, his voice, his eyes. He didn't come after me, and I didn't want him to. For the first time since stepping into the Blackmore estate, I felt like a stranger, not just to this place, to myself. In the morning, I woke to find a letter slid under my door. It was short, only one sentence. I would undo all of it if I could, but I can't. And I still love you. There was no signature. He didn't need one. I read it once, then tore it in half. Because forgiveness doesn't come in a single line. It comes in truth. And he wasn't done telling me everything. Not yet. I left the estate the next morning. No note. No explanation. Just my name scratched on the logbook at the front gate, and a silent ride in a cab back to Maine. I didn't even bring the leather boots I'd been working on in the library. Half done, unfinished, like everything between us. I didn't cry. Not when I passed the old cafe where Elise and I used to sit. Not when I stepped back into the Shuangjiaiku, still smelling of polish and time. I didn't cry until Elise looked up from her sketch pad and asked, simply, "Where's the man with the sad eyes?" I thought Ethan would stay away. The Ethan I knew, powerful, stubborn, perfectly composed. He would let me go. Out of pride, out of guilt, out of fear. But 3 nights later, he came. No driver, no suit. Just Ethan Blackmore in jeans, a dark coat, and that same silence that once ruled every room he entered. Except now, it wasn't cold. It was wrecked. I didn't open the door for him. Elise did. She blinked at him, wide-eyed, then stepped aside like she'd been waiting for him all her life. He walked in quietly, glancing at the tools, the leather scraps, the dust. Then he saw me, standing at the back table, holding a boot last like a weapon. "I'm not here to fix anything," he said. I didn't speak. "I'm not here to offer you money, or contracts, or reasons." Still, I said nothing. "I'm here to tell you the worst things I've done," he said, "because you deserve to leave me knowing the truth. Not the version I crafted, not the man I pretended to be." He stepped closer. I let her drive that night. I didn't fight hard enough to stop her. I watched her slam the door and said, "Nothing." Because I thought she'd come back. His voice cracked. She didn't. And neither did I. I looked away. "I chose you because I wanted to be punished," he continued. "Not because you were her, but because you could be close, enough to remind me what I'd destroyed." Tears prickled at the edges of my eyes. "And then something happened," he said. "You laughed. You argued. You stood in the rain and dared me to see you." He paused. "I haven't seen her since." I finally spoke. "And what happens now?" He stepped forward slowly. "I give you back everything you gave me. Your name, your truth, your right to be more than a mirror." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something wrapped in soft cloth. "I went back to the estate," he said. "Not for my things. For this." He unwrapped it. A leather-bound shoe, half finished, the one I'd abandoned. I want you to finish it, or burn it. I don't care. But it's yours." He placed it on the table between us. And for the first time, Ethan Blackmore did something he'd never done. He knelt, not like a man proposing, but like a man surrendering. "I'm not asking you to come back to a mansion filled with ghosts," he said, voice rough. "I'm asking you to build something with me, something that isn't haunted, something that starts here." He looked up at me. "I want Elise to stay with us. I want a house with chaos and breakfast on the floor and tools in the living room. I want you in your own name, your own voice, your own goddamn haircut." A beat. "Say no. I'll leave. I won't chase you." I stared at him, chest aching, throat locked. Elise walked over then, quiet, soft steps, and looked at the shoe on the table, then at Ethan, then at me. "He's not lying," she said, matter of fact. "He looks different now." I looked at the man kneeling in my workshop, his hands stained with shame, not pride. And for the first time, I didn't see the man who bought me. I saw the man who'd been unmade by me. Not because I was Isabella, but because I wasn't. "I'm not a ghost either," I said. He nodded. "I know." "Then help me build a home," I whispered. "Not a replica, not a mausoleum, a home." His hand shook as he took mine. I helped him up. We didn't kiss. Not that night. We just stood there. Two people, messy, grieving, unfinished, but no longer pretending. No longer performing. And for the first time in either of our lives, free. We didn't go back to the mansion right away. We stayed in Maine, in my old workshop, where the floor creaked and the heater buzzed and Elise laughed more than I'd ever heard her laugh. Ethan slept on the couch. He didn't complain. Every morning I'd catch him sitting by the window, watching the frost melt off the glass. Sometimes he'd write. Sometimes he'd just breathe. Healing is slow, but it comes. On the 5th morning he said it. "I want to go back." I looked up from the bench, where I was restitching the broken boot. "To the house?" "No," he said. "To the ruin. And turn it into something else." I didn't ask what he meant, because I already knew. 2 weeks later, we returned. The house looked different in spring light, less like a mausoleum, more like a shell waiting to be cracked open. We didn't unpack. We tore everything down, room by room. We started with the West Wing, the room where she died, the room where I first saw him sleepwalking, the room that had held so many years of silence. Ethan stood in the doorway and asked, "Are you sure? You?" I answered by walking in and pulling the curtains open. Light flooded the space, slashing across dust and velvet and the faded wallpaper she'd chosen. We gutted it, together. No servants, no contractors, just our hands, raw and blistered. And when the room was empty, Ethan whispered, "Now it's ready for something new." The next room we cleared was hers, Isabella's bedroom, the perfumes, the gowns, the framed photo on the vanity. I picked it up and studied it one last time. She was beautiful. She looked like me, but not like I did now. I placed the photo in a box and said goodbye without words. Ethan watched me the whole time, but didn't touch the box, didn't direct me, didn't ask to keep anything, and when I sealed it shut, he said, "Thank you." Not for packing it up, for freeing him from it. 3 weeks later, the house didn't look haunted anymore. The mirrors were gone, replaced by sunlight and uneven brushstrokes from Elise, who had decided one hallway needed more blue. I gave her a room of her own, not at the far end like a guest, but in the heart of the home. She painted flowers on her windows. I didn't stop her. One afternoon, while Ethan was helping Elise set up her speaker, I returned to the library. I found the boot I'd abandoned still resting on the shelf. Half finished. Waiting. I brought it downstairs, spread out my tools, and stitched until the sun went down. When I finished, Ethan walked in behind me. I handed him the shoe. "Done," I said. He turned it over in his hands, smiling slightly, then flipped it, revealing the sole. I stared. He'd had something engraved, tiny, discreet, but there, for the woman who made me remember my name and forget hers. That night, we lay in a new bed. Not hers. Ours. The room was smaller. The sheets were mismatched. The window didn't close properly. But it was warm. Real. He kissed my neck. Not to possess, not to apologize, but simply because he could. And when I whispered, "What now?" he didn't hesitate. "We build," he said. Slowly, honestly, and not because we're fixing something, because we finally have something worth building. Spring bled into summer. Elise made friends with the gardener's daughter. Ethan and I cooked badly and laughed often. Some nights we didn't talk about the past at all. Other nights we did, but always in the light. One morning I found a small box on my pillow. Inside was a ring, not extravagant, just a slender gold band, shaped like a branch, twisting, strong, alive. There was no note, just a whisper from the doorway. "This one's not for a contract." I said yes, not because I had to, not because the world told me to, but because he chose me, not her reflection, not her replacement, just me. And when he kissed me that night, under the stars and the sounds of Elise humming off-key in the next room, he said it like a promise, like a prayer, like a vow that had nothing to do with ghosts. "You're mine, not because I bought you, not because I lost her, but because I finally know what it means to choose someone. And I choose you." If this story stirred something in you, a memory, a heartbeat, a breath you didn't know you were holding, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that stay with you long after the screen goes dark. We've only just begun.